We're here with AurorA from Seules. They just got done on the stage match against Ladies AMD from Brazil. How was the match? How would you feel about it? And how have you felt about the tournament so far?
Well, I'd just like to start with saying the tournament is just as great as last year. I've been looking forward to coming back here once more and seeing how good we can, how far we can go, of course. The match tonight, we were actually really nervous. We spent 2 hours in our rooms just talking techs and trying to keep things cool and assuring ourselves that we are good enough to get by this and win this match. So we took it easy and we were really concentrated. So
yeah, And you said you came back from last year. Why don't you tell everybody where you came from? You're the defending champion, actually, although it's not with the team that was.
It's actually 3 players from Femina that was the second place winners from last year, and of course me from the SK ladies last year. So we got a little bit of a mix this year. So.
And you've got a very good team, one of the more favored teams. Why don't you tell me a little about that and about some of the other teams in the tournament for somebody who may not be following the CS tournament a little as well, or the girls tournament as well?
Yeah, I think the reason that we are favored and maybe are the favorites to win is because of the names that we do have on the team. I mean, we have, like I said, the 4 players from last year that have been winner and runner-up, so that definitely counts for something. I think Hooked gets a lot of media as well, a lot of attention about. They're also underdogs or favourites because they also have 3 players from the winning team last year, of course. So.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about the teams. I mean, it's really hard to have any understanding of how good the teams are going or how good they're playing because we've only really been training against Scandinavian teams like Hooked and misunderstood, things like that. So we have had no idea about the other side of the world, Brazil and China and America.
Yeah, you spoke briefly of that. We've already seen, those teams, and I thought looking at tonight's match, watching you guys play against them, the Brazilian team had great aim. A little bit of strategy problems here and there, and they may have been even closer of a game. The U.S. team beating Hook, like you had said, a little bit of advertisement, and then the Chinese team putting up a great effort against the Danish team of All for One. What do you think of these new teams? What little have you seen of them, and the one you played tonight?
Well, I think it's pretty much equal about how I think about all of them. I mean, they're all feared. I mean, the group we just got into now, it's two of the...
Why don't you go ahead and say what they are?
Well, it's with the B2B from France and Hooked from Norway, us and the Chinese team. And I mentioned on stage that the 2 favorites that the 2 that I'm fearing the most is definitely Hooked and the Chinese team, and of course we get in the same group as them, but it's fine. We take it as a good sign of getting rid of them early, so we have an easier final match.
Looking at the other groups, who do you see coming out of those? And go ahead and explain who you are in those groups.
You know what? I really don't know. I haven't actually had time to think about it. We just got told the groups now. We weren't there when we weren't present when the groups were called out. So I think we're going to go back home and back to the hotel, sit down, have a beer, and talk about some possible differences in our tactics, what we can do, because we know some of the games that they're playing and know how they're playing on them. So.
I'm going to have to ask this question. I know you don't want to answer it, but a guy versus girl comparison. How do you feel about that? How do you feel about the stigma, and how do you feel about the whole situation? And you got to get the comments. Got to get old about
Yeah, well, I mean, I've heard this question's been asked about 10,000 times, but it's. I would say I'm not all that for girl gaming, but of course I see this as a good opportunity to get girls starting Counter-Strike, get them into the game, and you can see that the difference from this year and last year, how many girls have actually applied to get down here. So you can see already there over 1 year how much it's grown, and I think within the next year it'll start to fuse the girls and the guys into one big tournament, which is what most of the girls are looking forward to.
One thing in the United States that I have to ask about, the Girls Got Game team received a sponsorship compared to some of the other guys' teams, and it became a little bit of a controversy. How do you feel about that, where some of the girls' teams that maybe aren't as good as some of the guys' teams, and that's obviously debatable, are getting sponsorship where the guys are not?
Well, I'd say for the guys' teams, you really need to be top 3 to actually get the media coverage that is needed for sponsors. With girls, it's not all that much competition. I mean, you have maybe 8 really good teams in the world, and in that way you get a lot of coverage, and that's why the sponsors think, well, let's take them instead. I mean, they get maybe more media, more attention than maybe a top 16 team from the guys. that's mine.
One last question. I'll go back to a little bit more of a girls thing. What do you think of being the only representative from Sweden, and what do you think of some of the mixed teams? Do you think that the actual country representatives are not as true? I mean, some of the teams are a little bit more mixed from multiple countries.
Well, it's not a prerequisite to have one nation, of course. It's just the way they pick the teams. They've taken it from one country each, so it would be fair for all countries attending to have one from each nation.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I think it works a lot better when you have a mixed team. I've been on a couple of Danish teams, all Danish girls, and I think you really need to mix and match to get different strengths. Otherwise, maybe you get too much of the same kind of playing style from the Danish girls.
You've extremely great interview. Thank you for coming on. I'm very impressed, and I really enjoyed the match tonight. It was great to see. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Do you have any other sponsors you want to do anything for?
Yeah, I would like to thank Nvidia for sponsoring us. Wouldn't it be possible to be down here without them, so thanks heaps.
Yep. Thank you for the interview.
You're welcome.